Yeah, that's just because I'm speaking to you on the phone, I think. All right, should we hang up and you can hear me?
Yeah.
You there? Hang on.
Good evening, Jacob Field here from DecideCrypto.com. We've got a very special guest along for this evening. But before we jump right into the content, the Ask Me Anything session, I would just like to take you through the warning message that you can see here. So myself and everyone that you'll be online tonight are not qualified financial advisors. The content, the questions, the answers provided as educational information only. Please take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, consult with a qualified and licensed financial advisor before making any investment decisions. So I haven't done a sound check. We're using a new system here tonight. So if you can see in here correctly, there should be a chat bar within your Google Hangout session. Please, by any means, jump in and say hello. I'm just seeing out here. If you can see in here correctly, please, it will be great to hear positive feedback in that regard. I'm going to unmute the microphones now for Max and also Craig.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Okay, and Craig, you're able to unmute from your end as well. Sorry about the it's unmuting automatically. Thank you so much for taking the time out tonight, Maxim, and it's going to be really exciting taking or helping you take us through Winding Tree, a very exciting ICO.
Thank you very much. Thank you for kind words. Happy to be here, and I guess I'll just jump right in. If you don't mind, just gonna give a little overview to people who watch this video right now, or maybe who will watch it later.
We have a few on the line.
Right.
We've distributed this out to our audience at Decide Crypto. We also have Craig Cobb on the line from Trader Cobb, who you can find on the Twitters. I have got your address there so people can engage with you directly, potentially two things at once on Twitter. Also my address there at Decide Crypto and Trader Cobb on the line also. For those of you that don't know Winding Tree, I've been across it for a good few months now as part of our internal due diligence when we're looking at ICOs, but it's looking to disrupt the travel distribution industry. So not so much, logging on and booking a flight using, your local airline. It's the layer below that. It's empowering the distributors of travel and all of the suppliers within that industry, matching those with the facilitators and the guys that are conduits to the end consumer. Would that be a good quick summary there, Maxim?
Yeah, it was okay. It was not too bad. Yes. Do you want me to just jump right in and maybe give a little bit of the story behind Winding Tree, what it is, how we're gonna do it, et cetera, et cetera?
I'd love to. Yeah, maybe the elevator pitch, if you will.
Right. So well, you gave out the elevator pitch, right? So our goal is not to disrupt, by the way. So that's just something that I would say differently. Our goal is to foster innovation in the travel industry. And that's the reason why we set up this nonprofit foundation, first in Switzerland and then in Gibraltar.
Sure.
The goal in the bylaws of those organizations, we have it written down that those organizations are created with one purpose: to foster innovation in the travel industry. And that's why this project is created. We don't want to disrupt anyone. We just want us mere mortals, consumers, to have a better travel experience. We want to travel faster, cheaper, better, in all sorts of ways, right? And so what is the problem, you'd ask? What is the problem here, right? So I've been in the travel industry doing all sorts of things for about 5-6 years now. And with one of the startups that we were working on, with that startup, we went through Y Combinator a few years ago. And I'm a software engineer, right? And my co-founder, he's a software engineer as well. That's Jakub Wysoki, who's the CTO of Wine Industry as well, right?
Yes.
And
so does that you're speaking of?
Yeah. So we were looking at this very, very sorry state of technology in the travel industry. With that startup, we were struggling to connect to other providers because those APIs were XML APIs. Documentation was Google translated from Spanish to English in some cases. The whole process of negotiating and getting access to the data, to hotel data, to availability of those hotels, to the ability to book those rooms instantly through some sort of API.
Yes.
That process was just horrible. And I said, why is it the case? What is happening here? I mean, travel industry, they don't live in a vacuum. They have access to all those tools that other software engineers in the world have available to them. So what is the problem? What is going on? So that's when I started kind of doing my research as to why this is happening, and realized that the problem is a few corporations that don't have an incentive to change anything. And that's the only reason why nothing is changing. So all the APIs stay the same. Everything is moving very, very slowly, right? So the problem, the fundamental problem is just a few companies that have a lot of money to stay where they are today, to maintain the status quo.
Yes.
And I thought, how can we change that? And blockchain kind of course, as a software engineer, I was watching all those technologies, and AI is very exciting. Blockchain is very exciting, or was at the time. And I'm like, okay, that's the solution, right? Because blockchain is created to remove intermediaries and open up data and make everything transparent. So basically the idea behind Wine Tree is, how do we foster innovation?
Sure.
We open up the data about those airline seats and hotel rooms and a variety of different things, home rentals, rail, car rentals. And we have a number of partners that we're talking to currently who are not just airlines, not just hotels.
Yeah.
And if we open up the data, if we allow people to play with that information, then we will create new, interesting products. Because what is innovation? Innovation is quickly trying 1,000 different things quickly and finding only one that's worked, right?
The scattergun approach.
Right, but with the status quo, with the setup that we have today, we cannot do that. You cannot even try one thing. Maybe you can try one thing a month, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And at the start, basically, you have like 3-4 months or 6 months of runway. That's how much money your investors gave to you or your family or your friends, right?
Sure.
Well, this is it. You're done. And I've seen so many travel startups that are struggling because of that. It's crazy because, as you may or may not, I've organized travel tech conferences in San Francisco. Note those travel conferences that are usually out there where there's a bunch of people in suits, all sorts of executives trying to look good in front of their peers, by waving iPhones and like, hey, we have a new iPhone app and stuff. I'm like, that's innovation in your opinion? Well, that's cool.
So it makes it sounds like we've got a few incumbents in the industry, some of the big boys, which you have mentioned in the white paper, which is, say, the Pricelines of the world. it's almost in their interest not to innovate because they do have that grasp on the industry and they're controlling the supply chain, I suppose, in terms of the product and distributing that. And they are obviously retaining a lot of the fat, which the consumer's obviously paying for in the end. So it's not necessarily in their interest to innovate. I'm cutting between what you're saying, and is that a fair distinction, would you say?
Well, absolutely. But again, that's not how innovation works. The technological breakthroughs come to fruition not because of the will of just a few companies. I mean, look at all those groundbreaking things that changed the world, right? Like computers, like the internet.
Yes.
And actually I think that's a condition for a breakthrough, that breakthrough should not be owned by one corporation. Again, computers, no one was able to patent them, right? Because of some crazy guy who published some blueprints just a few years prior to, who was it? IBM, I think, wanted to patent those computers or something like that. That maybe I don't get my facts straight right now, right? But then internet, for example, right? So CERN, where it was invented, they disowned that invention and they opened it up for the public. So that's how it happened. So whether Priceline or price lines of the world wanted or not, blockchain will happen and winding tree will happen in one form or another. And of course, we'll try and make it the best project possible.
I'm trying to get Craig on the line because he's itching to ask you some questions on this point. So I do apologize about doing two things at once.
No worries.
Probably just need to clarify before we go on, and I'm sure those listeners on the line will have a similar question. Where does the consumer fit into this space? So we're talking about innovation in travel distribution, okay? Are we talking about innovating the distributor, so the original hotel that's got the rooms for rooms available? Are we talking about, say, an aggregator who's looking after a chain or grouping of hotels or an airline as such? Or are we talking about the business? We're based here in Australia, so we've got localized examples, but the aggregator, the innovative aggregator of, say, of hotels.com or whatever it might be. Or are we talking about an interface that sits on a phone that the consumer is using to book directly into the Winding Tree platform? Where does it sit and how does it empower each of those layers?
Right. So we are not looking to, again, our goal is to foster innovation in the travel industry on a variety of different levels. We don't want to disrupt anyone. We are welcoming those price lines to use our infrastructure.
Yep.
And actually, because the platform is completely open source, we cannot even do anything if they want to use that infrastructure. They are welcome. Hotels and airlines, and we call them suppliers, right? What they have to do, they have to understand that if this prophecy that we live in a more and more technological world is true, if you practice what you preach, well, those companies have to become technology companies, again, one way or another. And that's what they were failing to do for a long time. Well, airlines are more technological than hotels, I would say.
Sure.
But they still, so basically what happened in the past 20, 30 years is that all those organizations, all those suppliers were delegating their technological expertise to just a very limited number of companies, right?
Yes.
Well, now they delegated all that power, all that trust, everything to a few companies, and they are being abused by those companies right now, right? So imagine that you don't understand anything about cars. You go to your auto mechanic and he says, oh man, this very important part is broken. You have to replace it. It's $2,000, right?
Yeah.
You don't understand anything about it. And you're like, okay, I guess I don't want to, get into a car crash or something. And you pay those money, right?
Sure.
So the exact same thing is happening, right? So in order for them to not be abused like that, they have to understand, no, that's total, that's a total lie. No, I understand that's not broken, right? Stuff like that.
And the blockchain's bringing that clarity and transparency, I suppose, to real cost and who's supplying what.
It's funny that it's not just bringing, it forces you to do that, right? Because even as a user, right, if you don't take that responsibility, if you don't educate yourself about how to store your private keys, securely, well, you'll lose your money. And that Japanese exchange that got hacked just a few days ago, like, how many times should we say don't store your Bitcoins or whatever crypto on an exchange? How many times do we have to say that? So it's the exact same situation. So blockchain in this regard, it even forces you to do that, right? It forces you to educate yourself about security, about how money works, about what blockchain is, et cetera, right? So we're hoping that we are going to help those hotels and airlines to kind of educate themselves about that kind of stuff as well.
So we're getting...
And in terms of, your question was about consumers, right?
Yeah.
And rarely... It is rare when innovation is driven by consumers, right? Was internet driven by consumer demand for what? Faster
yeah. No. Yep, exactly.
Right. Yep. So was the car invented because there is this famous saying that attributed to Henry Ford. I don't think it's true, but apparently he might have said that, oh, if I talk to my users, right, they would have said that they wanted a faster horse. No one would say that, hey, I want a car or whatever.
Definitely.
With an engine that would go, right, whatever. So for consumers, what we hope to achieve here, again, the end goal is to foster innovation, well, not just for the sake of innovation, but because I'm a traveler. I've been to about 45 countries probably. And I love travel, and I hate travel at the same time. I love the nature, I love the culture, but when I wait for my luggage at the belt and it's not there, and I have to stay there for an hour because the airline they don't know where my luggage is. I have to tell them that it's lost, right? But why can't they track it? Why can't they send me a text that, hey, your luggage is in Istanbul, and we're gonna send it back to you, tomorrow. Just don't wait.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. Small things like that aren't there, and it's very hard to fix them. In some cases, because of those incumbents, because of those intermediaries, because of the systems that they force you or those airlines to use. Just an example.
Yeah, so it's coming back a lot to me to complacency in a lot of regards. And I guess this is a consistent story in my space, which is identifying and analyzing the true user story and the utility to what a new crypto offering is providing to the community, the underlying value proposition there. But then also it is an investment to a lot of us as well. So when we see a user story, a need, we are investing in an entity that's potentially going to fill that void. That's a large part of it for us. There are incumbents. You've mentioned Priceline a couple of times already. They've had amazing growth, and I might try and set up the microphone, Craig. There is a delay on the line, so it's about 20 seconds between what you're hearing and the real world. Craig, when you sort of get this message coming through, please try and debug your microphone. That's a problem with your end, and we'll get you on to ask a couple of questions around Priceline, their growth, and I guess the incumbents in the industry pivoting towards the blockchain. We've seen it already with Kodaks of the world recently, seeing a threat and trying to step in front of it, but I might get Craig to focus on that in a few moments. I might just talk more around just describing a little bit how a token is involved in the platform, One Entry platform. The life token is, just to correct me if I'm wrong, it's used to actually facilitate a transaction. So it's, you're paying for a hotel room with a token. There are fees that are consumed per transaction, which are paid to the miner, which will provide the processing power to, I'm assuming, find the best room and match that to the audience, and then actually facilitate that transaction. So they're requiring the fee is paid to that miner in that regard. if that's correct, which I'm getting to the real question in a moment. Sorry, Maxim. If that's correct, is that the entirety of the intrinsic or scarcity value of the coin token with the entity? So what I'm talking about, we've got a network effect. The more people who are using the platform developing upon it, so it is really a framework for people to other entities to develop upon. The more that occurs, the more success you guys are having, the higher the intrinsic and scarcity value is attached to the token. Are they the only two ways that scarcity is generated? And how do you think your roadmap and execution of that is going to sort of drive those scarcity values? Because there's a close linkage for us as investors between that scarcity and asset growth.
Correct. So as you know, the number of tokens that we're going to generate in TG will be the final number of tokens. You cannot mine this. You cannot. No one will be able to create new tokens, right?
Sure.
And so the token is used on the platform for payments and including paying the miner fees in the upcoming, I think in Casper, that's going to be a possibility.
Yes.
But also we want, so why we're doing the TG, right? So the only reasonable way for any project to do a token generation event or token sale, whatever you may call it, right, is to distribute the ownership of the project, right? Again, in order to preserve or to enforce decentralization, because if only a handful of people, let's say a couple of VCs own all the tokens, they have all the power. That's the exact opposite of decentralization, right? Exactly. So we're doing the TG to kind of distribute the ownership of this project as widely as possible.
Sure.
And so first of all, let's talk about those payments, right? So we design it in such a way. There's only one token. We've thought about all sorts of different models. 2 tokens. One is kind of used for payments, and we could potentially make it more stable and stuff. And there's another token that's kind of the share of the company. But we decided not to do that. Why? Because we want to align interests of all the people who are involved in this, right? So the backers of the project, right? Those people who give us money in order to see the project succeed, right?
Cool.
And our travel partners and everyone who's involved, everyone who's a token holder, we design it in such a way that interests of all those people are aligned, right? So I'm going to show you an example, right? So let's say there's a new partner that's coming to the platform, and they need, again, in order to transact on the platform, they need more tokens. They need new tokens. And they have, the tokens are scarce, so they have to buy it off of an exchange, for example, or somewhere else from some other person. And therefore, the demand for the token increases, right?
Yep.
For the price goes up, right? So these two events, a new partner coming on the platform and token price going up, those are so logical, right? So yeah, the platform is becoming more popular and the price of the token goes up. So that's how we wanted to see it. And what we also wanted to give to our partners, to travel partners, to suppliers and sellers and everyone who's involved is the ability to have a say in this conversation, in how this platform is developing, right? Because currently, again, you don't have a say. There is only a handful, let's say 5, 6 big corporations out there. And you have no way to influence them into doing anything, right? And there are a few organizations out there as well who are trying to create standards for the travel industry, and they are nonprofits, et cetera, but you don't have a say. Not really. You cannot talk to them. They wouldn't talk to you. You're too small.
Yeah.
But with this setup, we allow anyone and everyone to create a proposal for a change similar to Bitcoin improvement proposals, for example, right? So we should work as a community. So one of the big changes that we're bringing here in the travel industry, it's never been done before in the travel industry. What we're creating here is a community of people who want to work together towards making travel better. Something that's one of our values that we bring onto the table here.
you're also, I will probably note that at every decision point along the way, my, gut, I suppose, or interpretation of your logic and decision-making process has been, we want to make, insert fairness into the equation, which I will get onto, towards the end around the token sale and having no cap there and linking your performance to the distribution of tokens and potentially the attraction of it. But then also giving that voting power to the community to shape and shift. It can be a double-edged sword, I suppose, if there is disputes or splintering of it. But I mean, really what the question for me there is, we are assessing a problem. We have competitive risk in the environment with slow-moving incumbents who have created inefficiency, which has been solved by a smart application of the blockchain, which, I'm feeling this is not forced. I'm feeling this is real. We have intrinsic value and scarcity attached to a network effect and usage within the token. And pulling out of that, your last statement there, which is something that really stands out to me, is you're actually providing incentive for new partners to integrate into the platform by their very presence. They're driving up value of the token by introducing the scarcity from themselves. So, that barrier to entry is lowered by their very entry. So having that alignment's obviously very important, and I can see as a positive. There's no consumption of token. The number of tokens in circulation, etc., are not consumed or burnt down the track. That's a fixed amount. It's just a transfer. Once they are mined, they are then transferred to the miner. Probably won't go into that too much in terms of, Craig is now on the line in terms of, I've dialed him in with my phone. Craig, I'm going to switch on to speaker.
Yeah, you got me?
Can you hear that? We can hear you now, Craig. Can everyone else hear?
Okay. First of all, Maxim, nice to meet you. Secondly, apologies for whatever's happened. It always seems to be the case.
It's okay. It's okay. For those of you that don't know, Trader Cobb, about 15 years in the trading game, someone who I look up to tremendously for his ability to look to the fundamentals of a underlying asset from a trading perspective, looking at entry and exit into that asset, and then looking at the commercials of it as well. So, yeah, it's probably best to quickly go over and hand over to you, Craig, because I know you had questions around the Priceline Group and how they might disrupt or compete.
Yeah, so first of all, I just wanted to say I've read the white paper, all 24 pages, so thank you for not being too cumbersome, very easy to read. That makes a big difference to my day. I wish they'd all take the same model as you. There are some things I really like in it. There's a lot of these transactional tokens that are out there now that are talking about. They're talking about how they can do thousands of transactions a second, and many times you look at that and go, well, does that industry actually need that? In the travel industry, I can see that it definitely needs it. There's a lot of travel going on. My question comes around. It comes from the white paper in a sense that you talked about Priceline with I think it was average growth of 40% year on year for a decade, which is obviously phenomenal. Meaning, in my view, from a logical and fundamental point of view, that business would likely be quite profitable and well funded. So I suppose the first question I have is, if they're so well funded and they're doing so well with such extraordinary growth, and obviously they've got a big base, if you to come into the space, disrupt it, and find a model that works well, what's stopping them? And, well, nothing's stopping them, but how are you going to be a point of difference if they decide, if Priceline, for example, decides that they want to take on the blockchain community and they've got the money and the group and the following and the know-how to do it? So how are you going to sort of alleviate that threat?
Sure.
Well, again, I think there is. We welcome them. We want to work with them. They should be connected to this infrastructure that we're creating. And in fact, we're talking to some of those big companies. And our goal is for everyone to work together. And So what is the risk here? The risk is that Priceline or Sabre or Amadeus or one of those big companies would do what? They would create their own private blockchain and threaten us with that? Well, that's nonsensical, right? It doesn't make any sense. The value of the network that we're building, the value of Bitcoin, the value of Ether lies exactly in the fact that no one owns it. Just like with the internet, no one owns the internet, no one controls it. Yes, there are multiple different powers that can influence where the internet goes, you know, whatever repealing net neutrality in the US, I think is just crazy, right? But nonetheless, no one can shut that network down. You can connect your computer to the internet pretty easily, hopefully, and you have 5, 10 ways of doing that. What would they do? One thing that they do right now is they try to confuse people with this notion of private blockchains, and it's just not just them, it's a few other companies out there, the companies that you definitely know and have been to those meetings where there is, let's say, 30 executives from airlines, and there's this company that puts up a slide or a series of slides with circles and squares. And you know, I'm a software engineer. I've been in the blockchain space for some time now, in the travel for a long time. I couldn't understand those slides, let alone people who have no idea what blockchain is, right? And they just say, because those are big companies, what they can do is they can confuse people. They can say, hey, we've built a private blockchain for you, go and use it. But when people don't understand that blockchain has value because it's not private, because it's not owned by one company, and I asked those guys, I challenged them, hey guys, how does it make sense? Who hosts those nodes when I go and create a private blockchain on your platform? Oh, we're gonna host it for you. It's all good, man. You know, just join us, right?
And we're talking
a lot of confusion around that.
And I suppose we'll be talking about different things in terms of, you know, if you're covering the base of a decentralized and you know, open source in a certain way, moderated environment or community, you're covering those bases. You're saturating the innovation space in terms of you're owning a thin wedge of it. Across those spaces. You know, for them to come in and innovate and to potentially compete against, as you say, a blockchain solution would be only competing against a small segment of that, and they're using their marketing nous and resources. And obviously, the Priceline founder is a very smart guy. He's pivoted many times over the years. I've read quite a few stories of what he's done, but you're basically coming to the first mover and saturating. And doing things in a very egalitarian manner, where they wouldn't really compete. It would just make sense for them to plug in.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. Again, it doesn't make any sense. So there can be no competition, right? The story goes back into 1993. When Tim Berners-Lee was releasing one of the first version of the HTTP protocol, and that's how the web was created, for those who are watching this.
Sure.
There was a competing protocol, GopherNet, I think, or just Gopher, right? And you can find it on Wikipedia, the stories out there. And the difference between those two protocols was this. Gopher wanted to charge some sort of license fee for the server software that they were producing, right?
Yeah.
And HTTP was 100% free, open source, whatever. There was a vibrant community that was working on that protocol and tools around it. And that's the difference. So what are we using today? Are we using some sort of private blockchain? Are we using some sort of private internet where one company would own everything? No. We're using this completely open, completely open source and protocols and networks.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess you've touched on it a few times with the software development background. It'd be great to gain some clarity around yourself and the team.
Right.
obviously you can't speak for others, but generally how you've journeyed towards Winding Tree, worked together in the past. I do like to see teams that have obviously had some wins together. And just describe the makeup of the team, any areas that you're looking to build out further, size, scope. It'd be great to get some clarity there.
Right. So I'm a software engineer. I'm not doing a lot of coding these days. It's just mostly emails and things like this. And today I'm going to speak at another conference in Budapest, where I am right now. It's a hotel conference, and we, Winding Tree, our team, and me personally, we brought this notion of blockchain and travel into the travel industry. And actually, so if you go on my LinkedIn profile, if you go and find the article that's called Travel Industry's Invisible Battle, that was published in 2016, end of 2016. There was kind of, to me at least, I haven't read anything before that about blockchain and travel.
Yes.
And that kind of started this whole conversation of applying blockchain ideas in the travel industry. For many people, I guess not for all. I'm a software engineer. I worked with Cobb, who's the CTO of the company, I've known him for 10 years, and we've worked together before at a big corporation.
Yes.
Czech Republic, and then we worked together on the startup. So he's a great backend guy, Python, all sorts of things. So he's awesome. Pedro, I've known for a while as well, and his business skills, I was just mind blown about him every time, and it's great working with this guy. Augusto, our blockchain expert. He's from Argentina. I found him through, friend of a friend of a friend. And there's this very actually active community in Argentina of blockchain developers. It's just amazing. And some of our partners and one of our advisors is from Argentina.
Sure.
And the stuff that they're doing is just amazing. I'm talking about Manuel, of course. So super smart person. Norm, with Norm, I had this historical conversation back in 2015, end of 2015. And when I was just starting to do this research about, why is travel industry so outdated? What is happening? So I talked to him. I saw him at a conference once, and then he came to the meetup that I was organizing, Travel Tech Meetup.
Wow.
I started to organize with Marina Yaneko, and I'm like, wow, Norm showed up at this event. This is crazy. Norm is a household name in the travel industry, right? And he said, well, there are no other events. There's, all sorts of pseudo travel tech conferences and stuff. But the real conversation where people would gather together and talk about real problems is not happening. So Travel Tech Meetup and then Travel Tech Con had become that for many people in San Francisco and around San Francisco.
Yes.
And I had this historical conversation with them about standards in the travel industry. And I mentioned the word blockchain, and he was very excited. And when we talked for hours about all those things, and finally, he was of great help to this project, and he's just amazing.
Wonderful. So just at a really high level observation, we've got 4 core members of the team with a bias towards development, engineering. The marketing PR of how you've positioned yourself so far is very good. Is there other team members, consultants, etc., not featured here, or?
Yeah, and there are too many, and I guess we're not doing a great job updating the website, but everything is moving so quickly. So we have a few more members of the team that are not on this page, and they definitely should be there. Dave Montali, who is helping us with partnerships, Marina Yaneko, as I mentioned, who's helping us with community, and many other things. She's amazing. I worked with her for several years. We have a few more developers who are working on the blockchain side of things, and not just blockchain. There's a number of developers that are working on smart contracts right now on KYC for the ICO and stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on. So I guess you can go to perhaps to our GitHub profile, and all those developers are listed there. And we already have, again, the idea behind Winding Tree is everything is open source. And we already have a bunch of people who are not on the team working on smart contracts and all sorts of things. Yeah, I don't know if you can find it through this website. If you can do github.com/windingtree, everything together, I think that it should be there. Yeah, there you go.
Very good. I mean, I guess that was the point with the team. That was an original concern in our internal due diligence. The team hasn't been built out yet, so I just wanted to make sure that that is further evolved.
Yep.
One thing that I do look for, it's probably more out of laziness than real world application. Doing the interviewer hat, looking for the big, the big name businesses, which our Australian companies are very different to America or globally. Looking for experience there, but myself, having run business. Or been in business for over a decade, I suppose. It's a completely different skill set, but it's the same. It's solving problem. It's working together. It's looking at a common goal and moving towards it. So for me, looking at the Roomstorm experience together, it's a different type of experience than the larger enterprise. But yeah, would you argue similar?
It's different. It's definitely different. So it's kind of the set of values and set of rules that we have for working together is different, of course, from a big corporation. There are no set rules. A lot of things are ad hoc, which maybe not isn't as good sometimes, but I think it works for us. And our team is distributed. But we're just able to react to different things very, very quickly, as opposed to a corporation that would need a month to just figuring out what's going on, right?
I guess that's probably the laziness from my perspective. Is you've seen tenure at a large organisation for say 4 or 5 years, where you can say, well, obviously they've lasted within this organisation, so they must be kicking goals, because you don't sort of stick around where we can't see your balance sheet, we can't see your financials. So it's a little bit harder to assess that from a startup, but you've obviously operated in the space. Right. You've been able to pull in partnerships, which are outstanding. I'd great to go into a little bit of clarity around those
Sure.
And the relationship there. But you've obviously, survived and treaded water and evolved a brand into what it is now. So without seeing the financials, obviously, and profitability, you have to read between the lines there, I suppose. It probably would be worth going into, when you talk about these partners that are already on the board, what their integration level is. Are they coming into the platform as someone, who is consuming and adding that network effect already, or are they just playing with it in proof of concept stages?
So what we're building here has two sides, two very important parts of this project. So one is this technology itself. One is the smart contracts and all the tools that we're building around that. And the second is network. Because even if we have the best technology out there and no one's using it, we have the chicken and the egg problem, right? And which, again, any network business has.
Sure.
So we're tackling that problem right away. And everything is very tightly knit here, because, again, without Lufthansa or without Nordic Choice, without our hotel partners, without our property management systems as partners that we work with, will we be able to build a protocol that would suit the needs of all those organizations? Of course not. We need their involvement from day one, right? So with Lufthansa, all those partners that you see on the screen have committed to our project on, I would say, 3 different levels, right? So one is they purchased a certain amount of tokens. They said, yes, we believe in your vision, we believe in your project. B, they said that they're going to give us inventory. Their inventory and publish it on the platform when certain parts of that platform is ready, right? So again, we're working first on the hotel smart contracts. The airline part is a little bit more complicated, and we need more work around that. Which brings me to the third point, which is they provide their expertise. We cannot build this platform without them. And that's, again, we're back to this thing where I'm saying everyone should have a say. Each and every partner should have a say. So that's the number of partners. That's the partners that we have today that can influence the protocol in a certain way, that can tell us what and how the platform should be working.
Would that be someone like Norm Rose who's opened those doors up, or is that coming from internal?
Lufthansa Group was a connection through Plug and Play, which came actually through Travel Tech Con. So Lufthansa and Lufthansa Group, which is Swiss and Austrian and Brussels Airlines, came through my work at Travel Tech Con, which again, Norm was a huge part of it. So let's just say yes.
I know Craig's got a question around, I guess, delivery. This is so partners roll out around the white paper and roadmap. Craig, I've just plugged you in again there, mate.
Yeah, mate. Look, I just had a bit of a question about the roadmap. I mean, this is, as you're very aware, the question before that Jacob asked about the difference between normal business and, I guess, blockchain business. There's a lot of similarities, and there's also a lot of things that are different. I mean, the roadmap is such an important thing for this community that if we're not hitting the steps within the roadmap, the market can get very scared, and the token can suffer. So my question is really, I'm looking at the Q4 2017. It looks like you had a very busy target for the quarter. Did you meet all of those topics on the roadmap? And if you did, I mean, did you blow it out of the water? I mean, I just looking for some confidence as far as the rest of what.
No, this is a really good question. This is a really good question. So
you've got that there. Sorry, Craig. Yeah.
Planning is hard. Planning is hard, especially in the software engineering area. It's extremely hard. So, obviously, something that's not happened from 2017 Q4 is just the first thing, right? So, live token distribution did happen. Why? Regulatory uncertainties in Switzerland, right? So that's why we moved the token sailing time. That's why we moved it to another jurisdiction, actually, right? So some of those things, of course, we cannot do anything about it, right? So we created the demo app, and again, if you go to our GitHub profile, there is a repository, WT demo app, and actually there's a guide that was created by not us, by one of the contributors and one, I guess, of the people that are excited about the project. If you Google Winding Tree tutorial, there is a guide about how you can integrate with those smart contracts, how you can do all those things. So we delivered on the demo application in regards to the smart contracts, right? One thing that is missing still is state channels, right? Because without state channels, and that's something that Jacob was talking about.
Sure.
So you were talking about I don't remember the exact phrasing that you were using there, but basically, yeah. So state channels are supposed to bring scalability and throughput to our smart contracts, right? Again, Ethereum today is not capable of scaling.
Yep.
And we're looking and working with a number of different companies out there with Zeppelin solutions. And again, that's where Manuel is from, around state channels. And we're actually, Augusta has created a new standard for Ethereum tokens. So before that, the standard ERC20 that everyone was using, and we created a new standard for the token. handle more data, et cetera, right? So demo, if you can go to demo.windingtree.com. Actually, there is a wallet there that you can use and play with
So that was
those smart contracts and with the new token standard that we've helped to create. So how crazy is that?
Going down the development rabbit hole here. It's good. No, I mean, it's I probably might just backtrack. So when you're saying the stay capacity, we're talking about you've extended the ERC20 token to include further data, obviously more intensive data, which is related to room or flight or person information. Just summarizing here, when you're hitting the roadmap, so I'm just scrolling back down through the white paper here, you're hitting the roadmap, so you're talking about stay capacity or integration with hotel providers as Q1 2018. So we've got partners already hitting the platform up, already using what has been developed. So, I mean, I guess that would be in beta, that would be in using that alpha version. Are they starting to do that? Are we looking like Q1 integration is happening?
So in terms of the time frame, I think we'll need a few more months to see first real transactions going on through the platform. And again, I can go into the nitty-gritty technical details about how we want to do that, because it's not one-size-fits-all solution. We have different methods of serving small hotels and bigger chains that will obviously need scaling, right, and state channels and things like that. But and again, Augusto has already performed he created a state channel before between two Leaf holders, between two Leaf wallets. As far as I understand, that's how he explained it to me. Maybe I don't remember it correctly, right? But we're testing state channels that use Leaf token. I think in the next few months, we definitely will see hotels posting their inventory. And again, we have those partners that are willing to do that, right?
Let's do it. And I mean, that's sort of going back to the 3 layers. One of them with bringing the partner on board is that they actually are contributing to using and testing. I think there's another question coming through, Craig. Just when you are talking on the line, Craig, if you could mute the actual Google Hangouts, it's creating an echo there. Around advisors and how they're actually, putting skin in the game.
Yeah. So again, look, my perspective here is it's really as an investor. I'm part of a fund here in Australia, and I've been a trader and investor for a long time. So my questions, I mean, the tech stuff, I've got team members that are in place for that. So I can appreciate what you're saying, but you guys are on another level in comparison to myself. But on an investment perspective, I mean, what I look for is I want to see people's skin in the game, so to speak. It's a saying that we use. And I mean, effectively, there's 2 types of advisors. There's people that put their face to the project for a large amount of money. And there's actually 3 types of advisors. People that put their face to a brand or a business for a large sum of money. Those who put their name as an advisor for a large stake of tokens. And those that actually invest their own funds into the project. Now, this is where I like to see that, because effectively the advisors have got a vested interest in the success of the outcome, because they will set to lose not just a bit of reputational value, but monetary value at the same time. So my question is, of the advisors, are these people invested financially, emotionally, or financially, emotionally, and also work-wise? So I just want to, if it's not financially, that's okay, but I want to know why they're going to be working hard for the successful outcome if they haven't got money in the picture.
Sure.
Right. So the majority of the advisors that we have there have invested their own money, and all of the founders have invested their own money into this project. And if you need proof, we can show Ether transactions and stuff like that, right? And all these people do what they do with us and help us for a variety of different ways. So Norm is completely sold on, well, he's not even sold. I didn't have to sell him, right? Because we've created this vision in our conversation that we started in 2015. So he's completely convinced that open source is the way to go. That's something that we haven't tried in the travel industry. And we've been doing all sorts of other things for such a long time. He's got an article on his blog. He has a website, traveltechconsulting.com. He has an article on his blog that says, he says, I haven't seen innovation in the travel industry for 30 years. And so he thinks Winding Tree is that innovation that we've been wanting and needing for such a long time, right? So that's Norm. Douglas Rice, for example, is a founder of HTNG. HTNG is this organization. It's a membership group for hotels. The acronym stands for Hotel Technology New Generation.
Yes.
Right? What they do is they try to create standards too, and they try to wrap their head around all sorts of different technologies, and they do many things, right? But Douglas is an advisor to Winding Tree, and Winding Tree, in a variety of different ways, tries to do the same things. Like, we want to create our new standards for exchanging data in the hospitality industry. Why does he do that? A lot of people ask me that. Well, precisely because Douglas believes in the open source as well. And we haven't tried that in the travel industry. And he helps that on that level, because HTNG or OTA, which is Open Travel Alliance, or IATA, which is the airline, of course, body, they don't do open source. All that stuff is closed, and all that stuff is created behind closed doors. And that's the change that we need here. So Douglas and Norm, they believe in open source. And again, I can say the same about pretty much all the other advisors. Of course, Mano, he believes in open source, Mano from Zeppelin. William Yadlik, he is one of the creators of Vayama, one of the founders. He was the CTO there, and he helps us with the airline knowledge, the knowledge about how the airline industry works. And he, I'm not going to mention names. Many of those people are investors. Many of those people have money in the project, right?
Oh.
I would just want to preserve at least some secrecy here. But he helps us with, again, on a variety of different ways. So Vayama is a booking engine, and he has expertise working with all those Pricelines and Amadeuses and Sabres of the world. So his experience and his expertise is invaluable to us.
Wonderful.
Johnny, corporate travel, a lot of expertise there. A lot of our potential target audience, the companies that will be using the platform first, will be corporate, or we call them TMCs, travel management companies, right? So, and again, some of those people are even creating projects already on top of the Winding Tree platform. So that's why they're all involved. It's all sweat and blood and tears and money too.
Craig's got the commercial mind, so he likes looking at the numbers and the demand supply position.
Right.
Can we talk quickly around just some quick hits around the ICO, when, how long, tokens, cap, and then Craig's got some more in-depth questions around the size of the raise and demand and supply.
Right. So one thing that I want to say right away is that our ICO is a little bit different from all the others that you see. A lot of people come into our chat and saying, oh, what is your total token supply? And we say, we don't know. And people are like, what do you mean you don't know? You don't know what you're doing? No, we know what we're doing. And what we want to do at our token generation event is we want to make sure that the distribution, the ownership distribution of this project is as wide as possible. And that's why we're doing an uncapped sale, right?
Sure.
Uncapped sale with a caveat that the foundation, the nonprofit foundation, is only going to receive $10 million, no more. And the rest of the money go into special smart contract. But let's talk about the uncapped sale, right? So again, why we're doing that? Because if the token sale was capped, let's say $25 million or whatever, right? there would be a possibility of 5 big investors of $5 million to get into the front of everyone, paying a lot of gas, et cetera, et cetera. And so the ownership of the project would be distributed between 5 entities, and the project is dead. That's it. It's centralized. In my opinion, that's centralized, right? Or in our opinion, in the opinion of our team.
Sure.
So, but if you do an uncapped sale, of course, you're going to have a number of whales or big contributors, a few $million. And then you have a long tail of contributors that is going to outweigh or balance those big contributors. And that's exactly what we want to do here. So in our opinion, you cannot cap a sale because that's centralization, right? But if you do an uncapped sale, the problem there becomes, well, what prevents us from getting whatever the amount of money is going to be, $200 million, and just running away to Patagonia in Argentina and changing our identities and hiding there? Well, that's precisely where that market validation mechanism comes in. That's what I said. So from the token sale, the foundation is going to receive only $10 million for the first 4 years. And then we have this special smart contract, which is called market validation mechanism, where the rest of the money will go to. And that market validation mechanism has 2 functions. One, it will maintain the price floor of the LIFT token, right? So if you, as an investor, you are unhappy with our progress over the whatever, you just don't like the project anymore, right, for some reason. So you can send your LIFT tokens back to that market validation mechanism and recover not all of your investment or not all of your money, but a part of it. The calculations are in our white paper on our blog, so you can see at the price function about how those things work.
Sure.
And the second part, so the market validation mechanism maintains the price floor, plus the money will be trickling down to the foundation over time on an exponential function. So in the first few months, it's going to be pennies, but closer we get to the duration of the market validation mechanism, which can be 2 years or 4 years, depending on how much money we're going to get. So if we get less than $40 million, it's going to be 2 years. If it's more than $40 million, it's going to be 4 years. And again, the price function is on our blog. If you go to blog.windingtree.com, or if you just Google MVM in a nutshell, Winding Tree, you will find that article where all that stuff is explained. And there is also a link to a calculator, to an Excel spreadsheet where you can go to and see how you can plug in different numbers there and see how it behaves, right? So what we've achieved with the with this design, what we've achieved is we achieved the wide distribution of the ownership of the project, plus we prevented basically ourselves from running away to Argentina. I just love Argentina, guys. Sorry, I don't know.
Craig, I know this was a concern around of yours, so does that help, and have you got any further clarification?
I've got some more questions, and I can also vouch for Argentinian steak and Malbec, so I'll be there in Argentina chasing after you if you do run off with my money. it's half holiday, half detective mission. Yes, some of the questions or some of the concerns that I have were answered. I mean, nowadays we are seeing the white list, right? So you've got to get on a white list before you can, take part or participate in the ICO. So I understand your logic around, if it's say a $25 million cap raise, 5 whales coming in and taking over. I get that, but we're increasingly seeing, like there was a different token. I won't mention the name today, but there was a different token today where participants were only able to get 0.2 of an Ethereum, which is kind of a really sad thing when you're somebody who does so much work and research into a project, and it's like, God damn it, it's not even worth reading the first goddamn page of the white paper. It's very frustrating. So there is 2 sides to the coin in that respect. But, I mean, could you not, to alleviate that issue of 5 people owning the total token distribution, therefore being centralized, therefore defeating the purpose of the decentralized economy, could you not work something like that in? If you've thought of that, like if that's been, I'm sure it has been considered, why did you go to the open-ended, raise? And it's double-edged in a question because obviously we've got this communication issue. The other part of it is like, from my point of view, it's very difficult. Like I love the project. Don't get me wrong. I love the fact that I can see it being useful. I can see it being taken on. I can see it being something that does definitely change the industry. And there's a lot of ICOs out there right now that, you ask yourself the question, does that need to be on the blockchain? Is this actually solving a problem? And I do see that the Lift token and Winding Tree can solve a huge chunk of the issues and create a better environment for businesses, the innovation, being able to get on and into the business of travel and whatnot, and also for the prices, hopefully, that won't just see bigger margins, it'll see bigger margins for business, but also it will see a better outcome for the consumer. I think the issue that I certainly have, I'm not sure if it's going to play out, but the no hard cap does make me think, well, as an investor, I'm talking purely as an investor here, when it does hit the exchange, which is where I'm looking to, well, am I going to scale out some of my position? I'm always managing my investors' risk. So there needs to be a certain amount of demand for the supply, so for the price to move up against the supply. Now, if there is a very successful marketing campaign that goes out, let's say you do very, very well and you raise 100 million. You enter the market cap with 100 million and you've done a very successful marketing campaign. So everyone's sitting there on their tokens. No one's really no one else is there to buy it. So I'm not articulating this very well, I don't think, but it's about supply and demand. How are we going to see the token increase if you do successfully in your marketing, which you obviously want to do and we want to see that, but how do I actually get value out of that as an ICO investor? My tokens are going to be wrapped up for X amount of time, and I'm not sure as to how much limit there's going to be. That's going to be something I'm looking forward to hearing the answer, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners and viewers are going to be pretty keen to hear on that. I know you've touched on it a bit, but if you could elaborate now, I'd really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're discussing, right? I mean, the idea is that the backers of the project will go to exchanges, and again, the more, and we will do, and I think we're doing a really good job in terms of marketing and stuff. And I mean, the partners that we have, who could have wished for better partners and better marketing around that, right?
Sure.
When Lufthansa joined our platform, we're just very, very happy and surprised too, because it's a big company. But to answer your question, we already have the seeds for the network in terms of our partners, right? And again, it's chicken and egg problem, and all we need to do to solve here is to solve that chicken and egg problem, and we already have that. We already are working with those airlines, with those hotels, with property management systems, with a variety of different companies. It's not just those, and we've been bombarded I receive emails every day. Hey, we have a rail company here in Italy. We want to integrate with you. And I'm like, guys, well, what am I going to do with you? We just don't have time right now. We're busy with other things, right? But we do have a line of people waiting for the platform to be working. So when we start seeing real transactions, there will be more demand. There will be more travel partners coming to the platform, and they will require tokens to enter the platform, and that's where your tokens come into play, right? That's where market, again, it's not one person who's going to be deciding, right? The market will decide on the right price point, and the supply and demand balance will decide what kind of price is going to be. But again, more partners, more users, more use of the platform, the higher the price point is.
So probably to summarize from both perspectives, there's an equilibrium on the raise. So obviously with unlimited supply, their demand is what it is. Whether marketing is infinitely successful or very successful or moderately successful, that's creating a level of demand which is met with supply equally. Okay, but then as soon as that supply is constricted, that's when you're now seeing potential partners coming into the platform which are driving scarcity and demand with finite supply that will then create the circumstance that us as investors are looking for. So it'll be two distinct stages. I guess probably just predicting what you're going to say there, Craig, in terms of Craig's very greedy. He likes to have a return on investment as soon as possible.
Right. I just wanted to say one more thing very quickly, that just stay tuned this week for more partners coming onto the platform, and you got to be very happy.
Sure.
Let me know. Let me talk. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of, like, what you just said was brilliant. Collating everything you've said throughout this whole chat, I like. And you know what clinched it for me just then? What you just said then. I've invested in equity a lot. Okay, now this isn't an equity. I know it's a business. Same sort of thing. You can't look at the fundamentals in the same sort of way. But what I really like, and I think this is the bit that hooks me, and so I think this is the bit that will hook other people that are skeptical about, no hard cap, is the fact that what you raise is what you raise. That's it. That's your hard cap. So there's no hard cap in the ICO, but whatever token distribution there is to the money, that's it. Now you're pinning, well, we are as investors pinning the success of our outcome upon the success of your business, which I love. The sheer speculative nature of cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology and what we're seeing out there, yes, it's great to see. Yes, people are making money, blah, blah, blah. But bottom line is, I want to be investing in solid teams that are not going to be affected by, the crypto community just crashing it because they just don't have patience. What you just said is that the brilliance in your team, the execution that you're going to perform, the partners that you've got coming in, the demand that you've got, the advisors that you have. I mean, my investment rides with your business and your team and your advisors, as opposed to the whims of the market in general. And I've got to say, mate, that I'm stoked for, because I can put the research and time into your team as opposed to trying to think about what the rest of the community is thinking. And that makes my job a lot easier on this. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the exactly. Thank you for saying that. And that's, also what we're discussing in the beginning, that the interests of all the parties that are involved in this project are aligned. My goal, well, I get 0 out of this project if the project is not successful, because our tokens are on the vesting schedule, right? So my goal is to make this network successful, right? Your goal as an investor is to provide us with some liquidity to make this project successful and therefore make you successful, right? Et cetera, et cetera. For partners, for everyone is aligned around the same goal. And the goal, as we define, is make this network happen, open it up for innovation. Again, we're not just talking about existing partners that are going, or existing travel companies that are going to use this network. One of our biggest assumption is that by lowering the barrier, by opening up the data, and that's what I was talking about in the beginning, we will see more and more people and small teams, let's say a team of 2 engineers and 1 designer, trying to create some website about travel in Australia. And if they are able to combine flight tickets and hotels very easily, let's say in a couple of days or maybe a week, right? They will need those tokens as well. And again, we're doing everything that's possible to lower those barriers to solve the chicken and egg problem. So,
and they're essentially, they could be, like Craig, a tea drinking hippie from Noosa. In terms of, that's their demographic, that's the target market they're going for, and they've constructed an offering that's unique and very appealing to that as a consumer. They've constructed that offering using your, I guess, building blocks. Then they're responsible for packaging that to their group of consumers.
Right.
You've given lots of options to lots of different groups and businesses.
And as I said, some of our backers and some of our big backers that we have so far, they're looking into building businesses on top of the platform. So they came in as backers, as investors. They looked at the platform, they did their due diligence, and they said, oh man, we can build a business on top of this thing. How about we do that as well? And
gotcha.
More than happy, of course, to hear them.
Craig, before we finish up, I know we've gone over time, and your time is very valuable and much appreciated. So have we got any final comments, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, the final comment is, I got to be honest, like at the beginning I was kind of like, all right, you know, the lack of a hard cap was really a big concern of me, of mine, and also, you know, there was a lot riding on how you answered the advisory part, and you added more to it just then by saying they came on as first investors and went, you know what, I've got some hookups here that might actually benefit this project, and became advisors. So, I mean, my summary, you've answered indirectly and directly two of my largest concerns, and I'm very impressed by that. So well done, and you know, I'll support this. I mean, you've done your homework, you've got the right base, you've got the right team, and I really enjoyed listening and being able to ask you the questions. So I wish you all the best of luck for two reasons, because I'm probably going to be involved in it, but also because I do believe in the project. So congratulations on what you've achieved so far, and long may that success continue.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for kind words, and we try and do our best.
And once again, from myself, thank you so much for your time. We're going to be gathering this up and obviously pushing it out across our network. And there might be some further follow-up questions and things. So I might bring the slide back on for our Twitter handles. Please, let's keep this conversation going. Once again, Maksim, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. And talk to you soon. I guess we'll catch up at some point. Cheers.
Wonderful. Good luck with it. Thank you.